OCC is critical infrastructure. As a systemically important financial market utility, it is essential that we have best-in-class cybersecurity techniques. Ultimately, the adversaries who might threaten us are nation states with geopolitical ends. These are the most sophisticated adversaries there are. We will take any help and all help to make sure we are as resilient and effective as we can possibly be. So we partnered with Amazon.
What kind of risk assessment did OCC perform before deployment?
Initially, we stood up an AI Governance Council, which is made up of myself, the Chief Information Officer, and the Chief Risk Officer. Nothing can get approved for use at all inside the OCC without our vetting and say-so. So we have top-level executive involvement to ensure risk, security, and technology are all covered in terms of our use of these technologies at all. Approval from the AIGC then kicks off a thorough investigation of the architecture and security capabilities of these platforms, where we're ensuring data privacy, data security, the standard we don't want training on our information kinds of things. We're also looking at potential exposures, opportunities for exposing data inappropriately, if that would ever be the case, and making sure that we are comfortable with the risks related to our information that will be used and processed in these generative AI environments, which includes a deep architectural review of the different environments, whether or not that is a sort of platform as a service implementation like AWS Bedrock, or more of a software as a service implementation, something like AWS Q for Business. We do a thorough investigation to address those risks and think about the types of data that are appropriate to be used, the types of integrations that we're allowed to use. We also then did train all of our staff on those requirements and rules. We made it very clear to them that they are an essential part of the equation. We have a philosophy we call 1 + 1 = 3, meaning we think human plus AI together generates more than either one can generate alone, but we make it very clear to the humans they still need to be one of those plus ones in the equation, and that they are ultimately accountable for any work product, any effort that they do where they have utilized AI as part of that production. In terms of best practice or understanding the infrastructure, we have regular communications, both through security channels as well as through our relationships with exchanges and other clearing members to understand how they're using AI, making sure that we're staying close to that. We do also have been working directly with some of the frontier labs, Anthropic, as well as Amazon, to think about the best way to implement and utilize AI. We've been doing our own research and investigations into the ultimate way to think about security for AI, which made us land on the idea that when it comes to data connectivity between AI and other tools, we're actually going to implement our own standards for those connections to ensure that they can meet our security needs and guarantees.
How does the OCC classify and manage data in third-party tech use?
So we do classify all of our data. We do determine what the sensitivity and the impact that that information could have to the organization if improperly exposed. We do certify the environments that those types of data based upon classification are authorized to operate in, and we ensure any of those environments are capable of handling that type of data. So whether or not that's a development environment or a research environment or something else, we ensure that it's capable of handling the correct type of information and that we have the right controls.
How does the OCC ensure transparency with regulators on tech innovations?
Maintaining regulatory compliance, it's our legal teams and our compliance teams who ensure that we are achieving that. We do obviously are audited routinely. We do heads up to regulators. I can say personally, when I joined OCC, one of the first things they did is introduce me to the SEC examination staff. One of the things I mentioned at the time was our interest in pursuing generative AI solutions, and had a brief conversation to let them know that this was on our roadmap. We do have lawyers as an advisory portion of that AIGC, so the AI Governance Committee. Anytime they have set ground rules, say anytime we get anywhere near something that might have a legal or regulatory concern, we involve them for official opinion and review on whether or not we need to act in that way or notify the regulators. We consider investigations. We bring that in early, at the very earliest design stages. So right now, as we are thinking about some agentic workflows. So moving from using AI in a more coding assistant or chat assistant into a more true agentic workflow. Our compliance and our attorneys are heavily involved in making sure that those approaches, what we're architecting, what we're designing and thinking about, whether or not that creates any need to notify, inform, or anything else.
How does the OCC evaluate key tech vendors for continuity and resilience?
Is we do examine the architecture of the organizations. We evaluate whether or not they are, as a supplier, generating more risk for us or reducing risk based upon the resiliency and the quality of their implementations. That's everything from publicly known statistics to looking deep under the hood of the architecture. I can say Amazon has made available to us through their clean reading room non-publicly available information to get us comfortable with the way that tools and systems are built. That's the kind of scrutiny we engage in. We also very critically think about failure modes when evaluating whether or not we're going to take on a vendor. So we have a conversation about how much dependence we are taking if that vendor were to fail for whatever reason. What's our fallback? What's our failure mode? And we incorporate that into the risk, and it sets sort of the threshold of evaluation of resilience or requirements for those vendors.
Are you happy with the partnership?
We have a strong partnership with Amazon. We are grateful. We still have a continued ongoing, I have a monthly engagement with them. We have as much access to resources as we need from them as we're thinking around through security. That's including working through architectural designs of new agentic implementations that we're considering working on even from a pure security perspective to thinking about best practices for account architecture, implementations of tools like Sentinel, and ensuring that we really do understand the underneath the surface layer of how the Amazon services actually function to ensure we are getting the resiliency and availability and other SIFMU related requirements that we need. They've been an excellent partner. They've been incredibly transparent and allowed us to achieve the confidence both that we have thought through our angles and that we really understand their infrastructure to feel comfortable moving forward.
How has the AI approach been received by the employees?
As you might imagine, initial trepidation, right? You see the headlines continuously about how many jobs is it replacing at technology companies, things like that. This is why we very publicly, consistently, in fact, we just published on our newsletter here recently, we are not chasing replacement of human beings. We are chasing making human beings superhuman. We have more problem, more risk, more opportunity than we have labor to chase. This is a way for us to do more, achieve more, better implement our capabilities because we can make all of our already excellent staff even more capable. And once we really drove home that message and we gave them access to the tools, we're now seeing very consistent adoption from the coding aspect. I think we're north of 85% last time I checked of developers or daily active users of AI in this space. We are rolling out more deeper and more successful tools with successful pilots around the business side of infrastructure. We are in the process of validating business cases and designing architectures to do agentic implementations, but all around the idea that we are chasing productivity for our existing staff, enhancing them, not attempting to replace them.
How does your approach looking for new hires change?
You start caring more than ever about critical thinking, creativity. You need the ability to prompt the AI and to evaluate the quality of what it's giving you back, and less about knowledge retention, right? You have essentially an expert consultant sitting with you. The question is, are you good at using that expertise? That becomes more important than yourself having maintained an encyclopedic knowledge of given topics. Experience is still relevant. It's still always a thing that you need, but it is perhaps not as critical as it might have been in a pre-AI world.
How do you feel about your implementation of AI compared to others in your space?
The general feeling is we feel really good. Truthfully, we were later to this. When I arrived in February, we didn't have any generative AI at all. The pace of our adoption has been incredibly quick. And I think we actually, by being a little bit late to the party, we actually skipped over an earlier generation of the everything has a chatbot integrated into it and you buy 100 of them sort of generation, which has mired some other people. Like there was folks who became dependent on less capable agents in the 2023, 2024 timeline that now have some tech debt and are kind of stuck that we just got to jump over. So we went straight to Claude Code as our coding agent and are seeing amazing results from that. As we then use that as a paradigm for what good looks like, it's ensuring that our utilization is better. I think the other thing I would say from all of the assessments we did, evaluations, conversations, it's never too late. No one is an expert in this space at all. If you're willing to dig in and get your hands dirty, you can very quickly run to the forward edge. We're still early in our journey, but we also feel like we're pretty advanced in our understanding.